Hi, my name is Sean Blinken. Today's video, we'll be talking about the history of the Amtrak Silver Star, talk about how it started and what the possibility future is because of the haze and knowing if the train's ever going to come back, despite in 2 or 3 years. So, let's get started the history. On December 12, 1941, the Seaborne Air Line Railroad, which was formerly known as the Railway, would introduce a train called the Silver Star, which would ran between New York City and Miami, with also later was extended to St. Petersburg, which would be beyond Tampa. It was a predecessor known as the Silver Star, which was renamed on that same day, which the main difference is as it would by the 1949 the train would rerun, so the branch of it would run between first it would start as a electric with a GG1 that hauled from New York to DC, then diesel locomotives would take the train in to all the way to Miami. However, by the 1950s, rail travel would have a decline due to the recent rise competition for airlines and as well as roads in the 1950s into 60s. So, as a result, the St. Petersburg line would have been cut to serve Tampa to do the decline, as well as in 1968, after the Pennsylvania Railway and New York Central merged to create the Elphi and Penn Central merger in 1968, which became the worst freight train company ever. 1 year later, in 1969, the Seaborne Airline Coastline would merge with the Atlantic Coastline Sister Railroad in 1969, and then they would also so it will remain this way until rail accident. Amtrak took over service on May 1st, 1971. So during that period, they run the train. The main difference is that the Silver Star, it would serve upstate North Carolina and South Carolina as well as western Tampa, while the Silver would go towards near the coast area such as Charleston, as well as not go to Tampa to Miami instead. The train numbers are train number 91 and 92, which 91 departs southbound at around 9 a.m. in the morning, and while the 92 would be the northbound one. I think it departed around 2 or 3 p.m. I'm not. Just let me know. I forgot to mention this in the Sunset Limited episode. I do apologize. The Sunset Limited train number 1 would depart New Orleans, which would travel to Los Angeles, while the train number 2, which would depart from Los Angeles to New Orleans, Louisiana. That was the main differences. The train would usually use a mix of consists at that time. First of all, the GG1s were 4 years old and were aging really bad. So, in 1974, Amtrak ordered the first locomotives to replace the old GG1s. They were built by General Electric. They were called the E60s, which these locomotives were based out of one that was taking place in Arizona at that time, which they had some troubles. They were really heavy locomotives. They were unsafe to ride at higher speeds. They were limited to 90 miles per hour, even though they were designed to run as fast as 110 miles per hour. And in addition to this, the SDP 40Fs came from EMD in 1974 to serve the long-distance trains until their F40PH locomotives unexpectedly had to make a power due to the head and power system with teething problems and would fail in a harsh climate. So they got the F42s that would come from the Bug Company, as to replace their old heritage fleet coach cars, which they were all replaced completely for good by 2002. And interestingly is that they received two Viewliner 2 sleeper cars as well as one heritage fleet car for the Bug Company. They were able to get this before the Bug Company filed for bankruptcy in 1985, actually, which they were no longer producing cars back then. But fortunately, one company in Monroe, New York, Austin, would continue the Viewliner 1 passenger sleeper cars, actually, to replace the Heritage Fleet sleeper cars by the late 1950s. And interestingly is that one catches, and in 2016, they would be orders, for 2010 to replace the last of the Heritage Fleet cars on the Eastern long distance trains, including baggage cars and dining cars. So, including the Wire 2s, they include sleeper cars, dining cars, baggage cars, and crew tour cars. They were delayed due to production issues, but all the baggage cars were delivered nearly in 2015. In 2016, in early 2016, in March, the Silver Star's dining car service was removed due to a shortage on the Heritage Fleet cars as well as production for these new Viewliner 2 dining cars, which will be completely in service by 2018, with most of them being delivered. So, which wasn't really all that interesting, but another unfortunate note is that on February 2nd of 2018, Silver Star train number 191 would unfortunately suffer a serious head-on collision with a CSX train in near Columbus, South Carolina. Took the lives of two people, including the engineer who sacrificed himself, while other passengers were injured. One interesting fact is that by 2003, the last Amtrak E60 locomotive was retired and was replaced with the EM7s as well as the problematic, unreliable HP locomotives. Well, in 1996, they started receiving P-42 DC locomotives, which they would haul the mascots of Amtrak to replace their older F-40P locomotives by late 2001 and early 2002. Despite the Wake Shoreline got their dining cars in service in 2018, the Silver Star didn't get their dining car service until 2020 in May, actually, when they got the service back on the train. Despite that, they were switched to Flex dining car service, actually. By the time July 6th, both the Silver Star and the Silver operated tri-weekly basis during the COVID-19 pandemic. They returned to daily service in June of 2021. And not to mention, in January of 2022, Amtrak would add the Silver Star a temporary stop to serve the city of German, Georgia, due to the sister train, the Silver, which was suspended due to a micro-orange, as well as a shortage of Amtrak employees, as well as to some where Hurricane Iran may have impacted there in October 2022, which once after the tracks were clear, along with power restored, the Silver train would return to service just in time for Columbus Day of 2022. Interestingly, in November, there were talks to bring back the traditional dining car service in November 2022, making it the first time the Silver Star had this service since late 2015 or early 2016 when they had to remove this style service. Which, on March 17th of 2023, on St. Patrick's Day, the train 991, which would offer the prototype and would be available for passengers in supercar, while the Silver would join in July. that they would open the service for coach passengers by March of 2024. In addition, to that, in July of 2024, there would be talks about Amtrak merging the Silver Star with the Capital, which that train ran from Chicago and Washington, D.C., due to a lot of reasons. First of all, the most key reason is that the New York City Tunnel in New York City, which has had team problems since Hurricane Sandy impacted October 2012. Well, and they need a new tunnel to replace that one. Not to mention the new bridge that was almost complete. So to help this, they would have to downsize some trains temporarily because of that. And the thing by late September of 2024, they announced a new train called the Floridian, which would be the first train to be called like this since 1979, when that train was cut. And due to the oil prices, we know train service to Nashville, Tennessee, which has not happened, which it's not going to serve that era, unfortunately. It would begin on November 10th of 2024, when the first train would depart northbound, and then the eastbound one, the outbound one, will also part that day. They will use the same equipment as the silver services, leading to traditional dining being back in Ohio, as well as West Virginia, and as well as Indiana, not to mention. So this route would be pretty popular, especially during the winter season of that year, which it's speculated that the Silver Star train could possibly return sometime in the fall of either 2025 or next year, 2026 or 7. So hopefully that train doesn't go away forever. Hope it's just temporary, which, who knows. As of now, they're using AOC 42 locomotives on these trains, including I caught one last year on March 12th of 2024 in Kissimmee, Florida, which the new mascots will be there, even though some people might not like them or not. I will respect your opinion if you don't like these locomotives. I just prefer them over the SC-44 Chargers because of the LED light of those. They don't look good. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for next time when I'll do a remaster of the Wake Shore to make the audio and the video look a little better. Not to mention, my next video will be the 10-year anniversary countdown to my first permanent YouTube video I kept permanently on channel, being 10 years old by late Good Friday to midnight on Saturday. So stay tuned to y'all. Can't wait. Bye for now. And be sure to like, comment, and subscribe my channel. Turn on notification bell where you can get notified every single time I upload a new video. And bye for now.